You're standing in the aisle, hand hovering over a guitar that looks like a piece of rock and roll history, and you're wondering if you're about to waste your cash on a pretty-looking instrument that won't actually fit your playing style. You've probably heard the buzz about Gretsch's vintage reissues, but you also know the market is full of glossy promises and empty hype. The big question is whether the Gretsch G6128T 53 Vintage Select Edition Duo Jet actually earns its reputation, or if it's just another pretty face that'll sit idle in the corner of your studio. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through the real-world factors that matter once the box is opened, because the difference between a guitar that inspires you and one that frustrates you is rarely found on a spec sheet. First off, the Duo Jet's chambered mahogany body is the kind of thing you notice when you lift it off the rack. Gretsch carved out a hollow cavity inside the solid body, and the result is a noticeable reduction in weight. If you've ever been stuck with a chunky Les Paul all night at a gig, you'll appreciate how the Duo Jet feels lighter without feeling flimsy. The reduced mass also contributes to a slightly more resonant, woody sustain that's characteristic of Gretsch's classic tone. In practice, this means clean chords and arpeggios ring out a bit longer, which works wonders for surf-style tremolo picking or those jangly indie chord progressions you love to layer. The Bigsby Vibrato tailpiece is the next big talking point. It's not a whammy bar that cranks out dive bombs, but a subtle, spring-loaded system that lets you add a gentle warble to a single note or chord. In a live setting, that little extra shimmer can give a clean rhythm part a lot more movement without overwhelming the mix. I tried it on a slow blues shuffle, and the slight pitch modulation added a vocal-like quality that made the solo feel more expressive. The trade-off is tuning stability. After aggressive use, the string can drift a half step or so, especially if you haven't set up the spring tension properly. For players who rely on precise intonation for fast alternate picking, that could be a minor nuisance, but for most rhythm players or melodic leads, the trade-off is worth the tonal flavor. Now, let's talk pickups. The Duo Jet ships with two single-coil pickups, the classic Gretsch Filtertron style, tuned to deliver a bright, chimey voice with a hint of that vintage twang you hear on classic rockabilly records. In a clean setting, they slice through a mix with clarity, making them great for country-flavored chicken picking or clean surf reverb patches. When you crank up the amp for overdrive, the single coils start to hiss a bit, and they don't have the fatness of humbuckers you'd expect for modern hard rock tones. I ran a moderate gain setting and found the tone retained its sparkle but lacked the thick low-end punch you get from a P90 or a humbucker. If you're chasing screaming metal leads, the Duo Jet will feel underpowered, but if your palate lives in the realms of classic rock, indie, or country rock, the single-coil character is actually a selling point. The neck is mahogany with a smooth U-shaped profile that sits comfortably between a modern fast-play feel and a vintage roundness. It's not super thin, so beginners who favor a slimmer neck might need a short adjustment period, but once you get used to it, the neck offers solid support for chordal work and soloing alike. The Rosewood fretboard adds a warm feel under the fingers, and the fretwork is smooth enough that you won't get snagged during quick position shifts. In my testing, the action came set up fairly low from the factory, which is a boon for players who like to bend strings without fighting against a high action, but it also means you should keep an eye on fret buzz when you dig in hard on the lower frets. So who should actually consider putting this guitar in their rig? If you're a guitarist who loves the vintage aesthetic, think classic black finish, the iconic Bigsby, and that Gretsch silhouette. This model checks the boxes. It's also a solid choice for gigging musicians who need a reliable clean tone that cuts through a band without getting lost in a wall of distortion. The chambered body makes it practical for longer sets, and the built-in vibrato gives you a quick way to add character without pulling out an external pedal. Indie artists who layer clean guitars with reverb will find the Duo Jet's bright single coils especially useful for creating that airy soundstage. On the flip side, if you spend most of your practice time shredding with high-gain pedals, or if you need a guitar that can sit in a metal or hard rock context without sounding thin, you might be better off with a model that offers humbuckers or at least a hotter pickup configuration. Likewise, absolute beginners.